Hey everybody, Amy here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming at you with a requested tutorial on the squash book that I had made last week. I had made this for our Flow Friday collab with Life Mix, the S Factor Studio, and Faithful Mess. So if you haven't checked out their channels already, you're going to want to go do so. The paper that I used was from the Flow book for paper lovers. And I just kind of created this little mini squash book album. And there's the back. So this isn't completely decorated yet. I do have the inside front decorated, and I'm probably going to go ahead and decorate the back before next month. I will be giving this away, so make sure you guys keep an eye out for that and go to last week's video and leave a comment for your chance to win that. This book was inspired by a little book that I had made several years ago for my daughter. This is pretty worn out, but as you can see, I didn't decorate the back of this one, but on the inside there are some pictures and some stamped images. So I was playing around last night just so that I could write down the measurements and so forth, so that I could do this tutorial for all of you that have requested it. So this does tie on the sides, where this one ties diagonally. So I just decorated the front with some gemstones, some of this eyelash trim, some punches, and then just a little spider. And you could see that there's the spider web paper in the background. So when you go ahead and open it, then you can see that I've got all of the mats in place. And then I flipped it over and I did decorate the back side as well. So there's plenty of room for fun photos. I'm one of these crafters where I feel that if you've got a lot of decorative paper, that your embellishments should be very simple. So that's just my preference. You can do it any way you want. You can layer all different kinds of background paper, but for me, I like this. I like the simplicity. When you've got a lot of busy paper, I just like the simplicity of it. So we're gonna go ahead and make that. What you're gonna need are 2 pieces of chipboard, or heavy duty cardboard, or some kind of heavy cardboard, something that is heavier than your standard cardstock. Okay, so this I received with some stencils that I had purchased, and so I think that this is heavy duty enough. This is about the weight of a cereal box. So you're going to want to cut 2 pieces down for your front and back cover, and those pieces are going to measure 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. So you want a complete square. And I've already done that here. So I've got my 2 chipboard pieces. The next thing you're going to need are 3 or 4 pieces of design paper. So I've got these 3 pieces, and I used 3 different designs for this book as well. So it worked out pretty well where, you know, it's all coordinating paper, and I was able to use that. You're not going to use all of it, but it's fun to have a bunch of different designs. You certainly could do it with 2. I chose to decorate the inside mats with 3. And then for the outside cover, I also picked a different piece of paper as well, and I'm using this one with the bats. Now this is a little bit thicker, sorry, because of the glossy embossed bats that are on here. So, like for example, these 2 were used with cardstock, and this one was used with the Flow paper. If you do have a Flow book and you've played around with the Flow paper, you know that it's more like a background and texture paper versus a cardstock. It's very thin. It's about the weight of copy paper. All right, so it's much easier to fold is what I'm getting at. So, okay, so again, we're going to start out. You need 2 pieces of chipboard or cardboard or cereal boxes, whatever you want to use, at 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. Now I'm going to mention the dimensions of everything while I'm going through this tutorial. However, I will also have them written out in the description box below. So if you don't have to keep replaying the video over and over again, you'll be able just to glance in the description box and I'll have all the dimensions written out for you there. All right. And then for your front and back cover, you're going to want to have 2 square pieces that measure 5.5 by 5.5. Okay. So again, I chose the bats. For the inside base of the book, you're going to need 3 sheets of cardstock that measure 8 inches by 8 inches. So you want an 8 inch square, 8 inches by 8 inches, and you're going to need 3 of these. All right. And then again, like I said, we'll get to this decorative paper. This is for the inside mats. We'll get to that down the road here a little bit. All right. So first thing is you're going to want to prepare your front and back cover. So I've already glued down 1 piece of chipboard, and then I'm just going to go ahead and glue the other piece. And you can use any kind of adhesive that you want. My preference is a wet glue. I am using art glitter glue right now, but I've used Tombow mono adhesive in the past. I've used tacky glue. So whatever your preference is, you could also use the double-sided tape or your ATG gun. Whatever type of adhesive works best for you. The reason why I choose the wet glue, although the art glitter glue does dry fast, even though the art glitter glue dries fairly quickly, the wet glue still gives you a little bit of time to kind of manipulate it to where it's, square on the page. If you have a bone folder, you can go ahead and burnish that. Or if you don't have a bone folder, you could also use a ruler. Okay. So I've already got these 2 matted. Because these have designs on them, we are going to have to be mindful when we're putting the book together, so that we don't end up with the bats being upside down. So you can go ahead and get that step done. Now the next thing is I wanted to mention for this particular book, because the paper was so thin, I think it's called mitering the corners. I didn't cut the corners and fold them in. I just bent the corners over. But if you do that with thicker cardstock, you're going to have these square corners, and it's going to look pretty yucky, right? So you want to avoid that because you want it to look pretty square. Now these are pretty good. There's a little bit of a dip in the corners, but I'm not too worried about that because this was just my sample. So for this, now I am going to go ahead and trim off the corners. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that at an angle just to snip some of that off. And I'm going to do that to both pieces. Now if you have a scoreboard, I recommend using it. Obviously I didn't have one all the time, so this is kind of a luxury item. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I am going to score just so that I can make this fold a little bit easier. So I'm just scoring right along the base of the chipboard or cardboard piece. The other important thing that I want to mention to everyone is that precision in your cutting is pretty important for this project because you want to end up with a perfect square. You're going to want to make sure that you do all of your cuts pretty precise. So if you don't have a cutter, it's going to be a little bit trickier. I just want to mention that. Well, for this part, you could again use either your wet glue or your double-sided sticky tape. I'm going to go ahead, I should have probably put this on before I did the cutting, but that's okay. For this part, I am going to go ahead and put my score tape on it because I'm not moving any paper or anything. And I want this tape to be right to the edge of the paper. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get the score tape, or get this double-sided tape on all 4 corners on both of them, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I have the score tape all the way around. So you just want to get that score tape down really good. And you can, like, you know, use wet adhesive if you want to. I've done it both ways. In fact, I may end up putting a little bit of glue in here as well. So now at this point, you just start ripping off the tape. I usually will do 2 sides at first. And then here is where the scoreboard comes in real handy. And then what I do is I just kind of take my bone folder and I tuck that corner in. Okay, just tuck it in the best you can. I am not perfect at that. It still takes me quite a bit of practice. Before I put the tape down completely, it seems to work a little bit better for me. But yeah, it's not perfect. So I usually will do 2 sides and then I'll go back and do the other 2. As far as your corners go, but that's going to get covered up anyways. See what I mean? So you want to make sure that you kind of tuck that in there, just so that you have a nice pointy corner. Because otherwise you're going to end up with this dent. And you don't want that. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and do this to all 4 sides on both pieces. And all of this is going to get covered up anyways, so you just mainly want to make sure that, you know, you don't have anything hanging out over the edge. So I'll show you. Like here. You can see how that white paper is going to go right up to about 1/16 of an inch all the way around. Okay? Well, in this case, it'll be our black cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up with the other one. And then I'll be back. So if you did use wet glue, you would probably want to put a book under this or on top of this just to hold it down, but because I used the double-sided sticky tape, it's not necessary. And then I do take my bone folder just around the edge just to kind of flatten it just so that it's flush. Alright, so then you've got your little cover, and that's what the back looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to this one, and I will be right back. Okay, so I'm just finishing up, taking the bone folder around the edges, and now you can set your front and back cover aside for now, and we can work on the center pieces. So now you're going to want to get your 3 solid color cardstock pieces, whichever color you prefer. I'm using the black cardstock. This is black cardstock from Recollections. And again, you're going to want to cut it down. I use 8.5 by 11. And you're going to want to cut it down to an 8 by 8 square. Now, if you don't have a scoreboard, you can certainly fold them. You want to make sure that your corners meet precisely. And I can't stress that enough. If you get your corners off, you know, just by the slightest bit, your book is going to be a little bit wonky and crooked. It's not going to line up perfectly. So you want to make sure that these corners match up really well. See how that is just slightly off a little bit? I want to fix that. I'm going to want to make sure that I get these completely square with one another. So that's why it's so important that you cut correctly. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get my scoreboard out. And I'll just show you with a different piece here. Fix that one in a minute. And you just want to score at 4 inches. Rotate the paper. Make sure it's in there good so that it's a perfectly flush. Because these marks are very important. 4x4. So then you've got you've got 4 quarters in the square. And you want to do that to all 3 pieces. So again, 8x8 inch square cardstock, scored at 4 inches, rotate, score again at 4 inches. This one got a little bit wonky. I'm just going to go ahead and score it right over it. 4 inches, rotate it, score again. Oops. 4 inches. If you wiggle off like I just did, I wouldn't worry about it because the mat is going to cover that. So you won't even see that. All right? Okay. Then what you want to do is you're going to want to fold these. So you're going to want to fold them at the score marks. Or if you don't have a score board, you're still going to want to make sure that you fold them. And then you're going to want to fold it again so that it equals a 4-inch square. Okay, so however you want to do that. What I normally do is I fold it in half. I open it and I fold it in half again. Then I flip it over because this book is going to open in both directions. And I fold it again. And you could certainly use your bone folder to make sure that those folds are nice and flat and flush. Flip it over, do the same thing. You're going to need this flexible enough to be able to fold into a square. So go ahead and do that to all 3 pieces of solid cardstock. And then I will show you how to put it all together. Okay, so this part is fairly easy. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take each piece and fold it diagonally. So you've got your square like this. You just want to turn it so that the points are this way, like a diamond shape. And then you're going to want to fold them each up to meet the corners. And again, this is very important to get this precise as well. You really want to make sure that this corner and this corner and this corner are all even. Okay, you don't want anything all wonky like that hanging over. You want to really try hard to make this a perfect diagonal. It's really not as hard as you think. Like I usually will just start in the corner there and then just go like that. And make sure you hold it tight so that you get that pointy corner. Okay. And if you get off a little bit, open it back up and do that. And if your folds are a little wonky, you still have time to fix them because your mats are going to cover up, you know, most of any mistake if you make one. So I do want to make sure that that is flush. And if it moves on me, I want to fix it. There. Okay. So now you've got it like this. And it should fold up like that. So let's take a look at this again. You've got your square. Turn it diagonally like a diamond. Take one piece to fold up to the top. Make sure your points are completely flush. However you got to do it. And this is just kind of how I do it, is I just put it down like that, take my thumb and finger, and just make it like a triangle. And you only do this to one side. You don't do it both ways, you just do it once. Okay, so we're going to do that again. You've got your 4/4. Turn it at a diagonal. Take one piece to meet the other corner like a triangle. Place that down. Make sure that's really nice and flush. And then I just take my finger. See, now when I did that, it slid. So I'm going to want to stop myself and do it again and hold this pretty tight. That one wants to keep sliding around. Take my finger, hold it like that, and then I just press this way and that way to make a triangle. All right, so now you've got it folded in 4/4 and then once diagonally. You don't want to go diagonally the other way. You just want to do that, just make it a triangle. All right, so you've got, 3 triangles. All right, so then what it's going to do is you're going to be able to fold the flaps then like so. So if you're holding it this way with the, if you're holding the triangle then upside down and you open it, all you do is press your finger in the center, push these together like so, and squash it down. And you want to do that with all 3 pieces. Point it that way and just squash it down. And it's really easy when you have already made the score marks. It's really easy then just to kind of squash it together. Just like that. It takes a little bit of practice, I'm not gonna lie, but it really is simple. So then you've got three little squares like this. All right, so now this part is a little bit tricky. You want to open them all back up, okay? And so I've got all of my triangles mountains. They're all mountains right now, okay? What I want to do is take the center one and have it be a valley. So you've got a mountain, a valley, and a mountain. And then what you're going to do is you're going to glue these together like so, okay? So you want to keep them at a diagonal like so. Here's your square. Here's your mountain fold. Keep it like that. Here's your square. Here's your valley fold. Here's your square. Here's your mountain fold. And this is how you're going to glue them together. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my art glitter glue. And I'm just going to go all the way around the square, not quite to the fold mark. Okay? So you want to make sure that you don't go over that fold mark because obviously you'll have a sticky mess. And then you just take, so this is my valley. You take your mountain and you just place it right there. And you want to just make sure that you make, that you get this on there pretty even. So I take the corner right up to the tip right there. All right. And then you're going to want to turn it over and then of course just burnish it and make sure that it's a perfect square. If you're off a little bit, your whole book isn't gonna close right. And I don't mean to scare you by saying that, I just want you to be aware of that. Okay, so now I've got my mountain, my valley, and I want my other mountain. And I'm going to go ahead on the valley page and put the glue, again, all the way around the edge, as close to the corner as I can and as close to the folds as I can. Okay. And this is why I like to use wet glue for this process, but you certainly could use score tape. Or I'm sorry, not score tape, but double-sided tape. And then again, I just kind of take it and I make sure that my point is lined up. And if it's not, take it off quick. And then line it up correctly. And then I flip it over. So then you've got the Valley, Valley, Mountain. And you can see how it's off just a little bit there. So I want to get that off of there really quick. And I want to make sure that I line that up perfectly, so that it is not going to fold weird. Okay, and then I fold it over again. All right, so now you want to flip it over again to where you've got the mountain, the valley, and the mountain. All right, so this is how your book is going to open. So you want to be able to, you want these mountains to fold up or to be out like this. Let me show you real quick here. As I open this one, I'm opening the cover. You see I've got my mountains that open first. Then I've got the valley. Then I've got the mountain again. Okay, so these are my mountains. This is my valley. So basically the book is going to close, like this is going to be your cover, is going to be glued to this end, and your back cover is going to be glued here. So you're going to want to fold your book to where basically you just take these points, bring them in like this, fold it this way, bring the points that way, and then bring these points back in this way. Okay, so then you end up with your little square. Let me show you that again. Okay, mountain, valley, mountain. You want to close the mountains together at a diagonal so that it goes in like that. Then you want to close these valleys. So valley below, remember, and then the mountains like that. All right, and then you want to go ahead and burnish that really well if you are confident that this is a perfect square. It's got some tape stuck there. Okay, so now if I were to open it this way, you can see that's wrong. That's the back. All right, that is my valley. So I want to make sure I flip it again. So now when I open it, I've got my two mountains, my valley, my mountain. I know I'm repeating myself, but this part is probably the trickiest part. All right. So now we're going to fold this. The last thing we're going to do is mat. So we're going to fold this together like so. And I'm just going to take my paper punch and just set that on top of there. I am going to bring back in my front and back cover. Now here's where you're going to want to decide what type of ribbon you want to use. For this one, as you can see, this one I did a side ribbon so that it ties on both ends. I think that's cute, but as you can see here, let me just show you. When you tie it, just do a quick little bow, you've got a little bit of bulk on both sides. Okay, so it's up to you on how you want to do it. You could do it so that you could create a closure so that it wraps all the way around the book and ties in a cute little bow in the front. However you prefer. So that is how you do the ties on the sides. And then this one, I actually prefer this where it's tied at a diagonal because it opens diagonally. So to me, it made more sense to put the ties diagonally. But it's whatever preference you want. But it's a little bit more out of the way when they're in each corner. So I am actually going to do because I've done these two where I did the sides, I'm actually going to do this one with the diagonal. So I just picked up some of this really thin ribbon. I've had it forever. So you can definitely see the difference in the size. It is even a little bit thinner than this, which is fine. And you're going to need two pieces, one for the front and one for the back. So you're going to want to make sure that at this point that you do have the book facing the correct way, okay? So that when you open it, you get that flip up. Okay, there's that mountain again. All right, and so I am just going to position this diagonally across my book like that. And that is how I'm going to glue it. If you want it the other way, you want the ties on the side, you would glue it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I am just going to take a strip of glue from one corner to the other. And then you want to make sure you have enough ribbon. You can always cut it off. And then I'm just going to lay that down. This is going to get covered up anyways by the cover. So I don't care if it's wonky in the center. I just want to make sure that the ties come out right at the corners here. Okay? So that's what you want to make sure. Just like that. Make sense? All right, now depending on what type of paper you have, if you have decorative paper that has a specific design on it, you're going to want to make sure that you put the cover on correctly. You don't want to put it on upside down. Okay, so be mindful of that as well. And the easiest way for me to put the cover on it is to actually put the glue on the book itself. So I am just going to take my art glitter glue and just go all the way around the four corners like so. And then I am going to go over this ribbon very carefully because I don't want it to move, and then just fill in glue around here. Again, you could certainly use any adhesive that you want. And then I just take and I just lay the cover right on top like that. And I quickly flip it over. And when you flip it over is when you're going to want to take the time to manipulate it so it's perfectly square. So go all the way around like so and make sure that you have it perfectly square. You want as much of a border as you possibly can. Okay? Just like that. And then flatten it. Then what I do is I open it back up. Okay? And then I take and fold it down like this. And then I'll burnish it just to make sure that that isn't going to go anywhere. And if you don't have a bone folder, you simply take your ruler and do it. Or just use your fingers or your thumb. Just want to make sure that that's adhered down there really good. All right. And then you want to close it again, like so. And then you just take it and flip it over and do the same thing. So you're going to want to measure your ribbon. Make your glue mark, a diagonal glue mark. Oop, I got some glue on the side here to get rid of that. And then take your ribbon, try to get it the same length as the other. I'd rather have it too long than not long enough, because I can always trim it. And then just make sure that the ends are right at the corners, like so. Okay? Then I take my glue, put glue all the way around, all four sides. along the strip in the middle because you don't want that ribbon coming apart. Okay, now again, you're going to want to make sure that you've got the covers going the right way. So you want the bats to be going the same way. Okay, oops. And I do. And then I just, this part is a little bit easier because you can just match it right up to the cover. And you just basically just set it down and make sure that you have all four corners flush. Okay. Oops, I forgot to cut my ribbon. All right, so there's my book. All right, this is the back now. So I want to open the back cover up and do the same thing. Take my bone folder or my ruler and just make sure I've got those edges down really good. So I'm making sure that that is down really good and that those corners are good. And then when I fold it together, you see I've got the ties on the side here. I'm not going to tie them yet because I want the glue to dry. Open it.